All right, we're back with more NBA coverage, and in this one, I am covering Game 4 of the first round of this year's NBA playoffs. And there would be a roller coaster of emotions for all the different teams involved in this, especially when it comes to these damn Knicks fans. To start out with that game on Saturday. Now, entering in this game, they were in a very dangerous spot. According to the numbers, they are 0-16 all-time when trailing 3-1 in a series. Of course, that includes the Eastern Conference Finals loss they had to Indiana last season. So they had to bring their fucking A game in order to avoid that and at least even up the series before going back home in Game 5. Let's just say that the way they played as a team most certainly warranted an ability to do exactly that. They were taking no prisoners in this game. Now, the Hawks got off to a very decent start, I'd say early in the first quarter, as their shot was coming around a little bit, but very quickly, as this game went forward, that proved to be a struggle for Atlanta. And with the Knicks consistently imposing their physical will over and over and over again, they just started to overwhelm Atlanta from here. I mean, you just had multiple possessions in a row. You have Cat and Brunson and all the like just hustling for rebounds, taking all of the contact that comes with the collapse inside the paint, and just really making it hard on their defenders to keep up with them. They had full and total control inside the three-point line in this game. And that ended up making all the difference, to the point where on one of these, you even got fucking Jordan Clarkson to draw an and one on Jonathan Kuminga after a contested make from Gabe Vincent on the other end. So that kind of energy just proved to really be the focal point for the Knicks in this game. And occasionally, the Hawks were able to break out of it, getting a little bit of work in from guys like CJ McCollum and Onyeka Okongwu before ending the quarter trailing by 7. The efficiency problem just exacerbated. They did get some fairly open looks on the outside with all of their players, but similar to some of the struggles they faced in the games prior with Nickeil Alexander-Walker especially, he just was not able to consistently be on his shot. That energy trickled out to the rest of the team, and it truly hurt them. They had to earn each and every single bucket that they did get, and even those were not easy at all. Meanwhile, it was just much lighter work on the other end for New York as Cat continued to force the issue, and in multiple ways. I mean, they were running him as a sort of post player, which is something that a lot of people have suggested, hey, he should lean into this a little more, even with him being one of the more prolific offensive big men in NBA history. The propensity for him to jack up threes and just consistently brick them or settle for spacing out rather than using his own size to his advantage has held this Knicks team back. In a series where you're going to consistently have Dyson Daniels, a much taller and longer guard, face off against Jalen Brunson, there could be room for Towns to take advantage of that. And that's exactly what ended up happening over a good sequence in this second quarter to extend this lead, as they just continued to swarm the hell out of a Hawks team, now moving more like sitting ducks. They had no other option. If you're not going to hit your shots, you're going to have to settle for some contested drops to the rim, and that's exactly what ended up happening as they just continued to block that off. Even OG Anunoby would make 2 back-to-back threes and grow this lead out to as much as 16, which would be mostly maintained before CJ McCollum, in a last-ditch effort for offense, got himself a nice finish at the cup with 3 seconds left in the first half to go down by 14 at halftime. Now, the overall struggle for the Hawks was very much understated and something that they weren't accustomed to. In fact, as the graphic said, this was their third half all time, this season rather, where they did not have a single fast break point. And they also struggled mightily from the three-point line. This Hawks team, we know multiple things about them. Of course, their youth movement after trading the likes of Mr. Trae Young has been very stated. They love to get out and run the floor. And in ways, it generated their entire offense. So for them to have to lean on another method that restricts their ability to push the pace of the game, that gave the Knicks all the edge they needed. They want to play their games in an uglier fashion. That's exactly what they were banking on. And in a game where they had to grind it out a little bit, you knew the Knicks were going to pull this one out. Now, it still took a matter of time, and granted, the Hawks displayed just a smidge in life. It was never enough. Because just when it felt like they were on the verge of a comeback, they could not protect the ball enough. You still had, even after you get a make from Onyeka Okongwu to push the lead down to 8, then you have OG Anunoby and even Jose Alvarado come right in, give them a massive boost of defense off the bench, and just balloon this lead right back up to as much as 19 at a point past the 5-minute mark after Jordan Clarkson hit a pair of free throws here. So every single time they had an answer and went on an 11-2 run after that brief run from the Hawks to open the quarter up. And it just kept on going. Like they could not string together enough possessions in a row where they could get a handle on this Knicks defense. They blocked everything off down low. And more of that credit goes to their wings and Josh Hart and OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges from really doing their best to prevent ball handlers from making an impact. They also got much more out of Miles McBride, as with Bridges' minutes still being limited after what the hell happened in Game 3, he gave them a bit of energy on both sides of the ball as well, and that also helped them out tremendously. By the end of this third quarter, Karl-Anthony Towns himself went on essentially a massive tear towards the end. The lead was at 19. They were up 82-63, and then this man just comes out instantly. It's a deep three-pointer, gets to the line, and gets to the lane for easy finishes to go on a 7-point personal run and extend this lead up to 21 by the end of the third quarter. I mean, as I said, literally, all of that presence in the paint was going to determine whether or not the Knicks were going to win this series, and they literally pounded them into submission as far as this game is concerned. Straight up. No pause. So when you phrase it like that, it's actually insane. And with them continuing to close it out, although the Hawks would win this quarter, in the fourth, it didn't end up meaning all that much. Because for most of this game, when it was actually important, the Knicks had full control. And there was nothing that Atlanta could do about it. It's a game that you could chalk up to a number of things. But ultimately, the Knicks would win it 114-98 and tie the series. You look at the Hawks and their efforts in this. As I said, off shooting night, just an aberration of performance, whatever you want to call it. You are not going to win playoff games shooting 24.4% from the three-point line. You just aren't. It doesn't really happen all that much. And it would take very special circumstances to make that happen. They struggled with turnovers, although they ended up being relatively even by the end of the game, as they had 18 as well. and were outperformed in the painted area, while just making less of their shots in general. Those are just not the things that you want to have line up if you're Atlanta. Again, a team who will thrive in transition play. They got slowed down against set defenses consistently, and they had absolutely no answer. Everybody on this team virtually struggled. Even with C.J. McCollum shooting 8 of 15 from the field for 17 points, still have 4 turnovers in this game. Nickeil Alexander-Walker actually made 5 threes on 10 attempts. And yet, that still would not prove to be enough in a game where virtually no one else could hit them as efficiently, outside of Gabe Vincent making 2 on 4 attempts. Jalen Johnson had 14 points in this game and 5 assists with 3 rebounds on 4 of 12 shooting. Onyeka Okongwu also had 12 points and 6 rebounds. And Jonathan Kuminga, who had been, honestly, up to this point, a low-key MVP candidate for Atlanta in this series, he struggled off the bench. In 25 minutes, had 10 points and 2 rebounds. Just harkening back to some of the same issues that he has as a player when it comes to his overall consistency and sometimes dexterity on the court with handling the ball. There were numerous possessions with him where it's like you're just trying to do so much and then you just randomly turn the ball over just because. So that kind of stuff left them in a very bad place by the end of this game. You think the Knicks give a shit about this? The Knicks are on cloud 9 right now with this, especially for Karl-Anthony Towns, who had seen some of his better contributions over the past few games be wasted as a result of, 1, the lack of ability to do anything in the fourth quarter, and 2, the dumb fouls that he would commit to self-sabotage his own production and that of the team in these games. As far as this game is concerned, although he was still in foul trouble by the end of it, he was in for long enough to really take it to Atlanta. Something that, as people prefaced before the series started, he typically does against this opponent. He did not leave anything out there on the court in this game. In fact, he was so damn good, especially as a post option, and he put up 20 points, 10 rebounds, and 10 assists in this game on 6 of 10 shooting with a single 3. His triple-double made him the 4th Knick all-time to do so. And just think about some of the names here. Obviously, Walt Frazier is a legend in that organization and one of the remaining players still alive from the last Knicks championship team all the way back in 1972. Then you have Dick McGuire also on this list, and most recently Josh Hart. It rarely happens in New York history, and here in the 2020s, you've now had Josh Hart and Karl-Anthony Towns, much maligned as he is, pull this off. That's some good history to have. And again, they're not complaining about it if it is contributing to an outright victory like this. Even the 16-point margin of victory doesn't do it justice completely. OG Anunoby had 22 points and 10 rebounds in this game on 9 of 16, shooting with 3 threes. Jalen Brunson had 19 points and 3 assists, along with 6 turnovers. A bit of an uglier game for him. They still romped them completely. So that says a lot to me about where the Knicks are trying to take this. Miles McBride also came in off the bench and provided 11 points with 3 three-pointers. Josh Hart had 10 points and 9 rebounds as well in this game on 4 of 10 shooting, and Mikal Bridges saw his minutes decrease to 19 in this game. He did put up 8 points in that time. And I still find it revealing that this is the outcome that he has to face, but they did win, and they won in commanding fashion. So I can't complain that much about it. Is it something that they can rely on long term? That remains to be seen. The team as a whole, they shot 49% from the field. And although they dominated in the paint, the fact that they still shot 45.2% from the three-point line on far less volume than Atlanta, as a team who in the regular season was one of the more prolific in terms of overall attempts from the three-point line, that is also another avenue in which they could blow this series wide open if they retain that quality in their play. So a commanding win for the Knicks overall, as I guess the orange and blue skies are up once again in this. And man, that's a hell of a way to do it. You can imagine how motivated that home crowd would be. Moving on to the Timberwolves and Nuggets. And dude, I'm going to be quick with this, but way too much went down. Now, the major headlines from this, to be brief, are one, that Anthony Edwards suffered a lower body injury in his leg and is set to miss potentially the next few games, maybe the next 3 weeks, according to Shams Charania. Also, in the same game, in literally less than a full minute of play, Donte DiVincenzo also went down with a non-contact injury that was later ruled as an Achilles tear, and he would be ruled out of the regular season entirely. For the rest of the season, I should say. Those are just devastating blows to a Timberwolves team who already came into this with a 2-1 lead. At the very least, Donte DiVincenzo provided them with solid shooting. And you even go back to Game 2 and how his defense as well came around, really gave some energy to this team as a whole. So now you have that gap left in your lineup as a result of his absence. The team as a whole wants to play with that identity, and so you may not miss too many steps with that. But there are few who can match DiVincenzo's ability to make threes in that way, especially when he gets a full head of steam going. This was a player who just last season was one of the primary leaders from the three-point line. So he carries that over into another productive season and has a great playoff series up to this point, and you lose him just like that. It's incredibly unfortunate. And you hope that he can recover in a full and efficient manner by at least some point within the next year, as that's the standard time and date of return from an injury of this kind. Of course, we've seen now that it can be accelerated. Tatum has now set that standard. I don't know if it would be wise to rush every single player back like that. Whatever Donte DiVincenzo needs, you just hope that he's well taken care of. And for Anthony Edwards, this is a player who, while his series hasn't been up to par necessarily, it just is unfortunate when you consider he'd apparently already been playing injured up to this point. And he just goes down on an awkward fall that he has no control over, quite frankly. Even though he hadn't been performing at what some people may consider his absolute best, they'd still been winning this series, and he'd still been a factor, especially with the 30-10 game that he had in Game 2 to get them to this point. And with his superstar ability, that is something that is far more irreplaceable in a way. And the Timberwolves are going to need a tremendous effort from all of their guys to step up far beyond their roles and try to still win this game. They ended up doing exactly that, because sticking true to their guns, they still dominated, and I mean dominated, Denver all night long. All night long. They got out, they ran the floor, they bullied these niggas in the paint for the entire game. And when the opportunity came for them to space out the floor, they had that contribution come from a completely different player. in a game without two of their better men on the court. They won 112-96 on Saturday. Ayo Dosunmu. As I said, man, y'all Timberwolves fans better be grateful y'all have him on y'all team. 43 points and 4 rebounds in 42 minutes off the bench, having to play those minutes as a result of those injuries taking place. And he shot 13 of 17 from the field, 5 of 5 from 3, and 12 of 12 from the line. In fact, those points are the most by a reserve player in a playoff game over the past 50 years. You have not seen the likes of a performance like this since the mid-1970s. And Ayo Dosunmu was the one to pull it off and spur this team to victory. And it's not like he was just, killing them from open range either. Like, he was actually taking initiative to drive into the lane for some of these buckets. One of them saw him just completely truck right through Jamal Murray and put up an open layup just for the hell of it. He was a killer from deep range in this game. And that's exactly what they ended up needing. So you have to give Dosunmu a tremendous amount of credit here. You also had Naz Reid step up off the bench with 17 and 9 in a game that saw the Wolves as a whole, again with injuries in question, have to rely deeply on the bench, showing that they have that advantage over Denver as well, putting up a combined 76 points compared to just 16 off the bench for the Nuggets, with how thin they typically are, even with a fully healthy roster. And that ability to outlast did enough here for them to get the win. They set the tempo from the opening tip, and they did not miss a step, even without two of their best players, to the point where you even have McDaniels get an extra layup from an outlet pass via Mike Conley at the end of the game. And then there is an ensuing scram there because Jokic didn't really like that a whole lot. Took a little exception to it. And so you just get some chaos unfolding at the end of the game here. But hey, that's the playoff energy that you want to see in a way, regardless of how those players are feeling in that moment. That's not something that you're really complaining that much about. On the other end, Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic still struggled mightily, shooting a combined 18 of 47 from the field and 3 of 10 from deep in this game for a combined 54 points. That lack of depth right now for a team that already, especially exiting from Game 3 and still feeling some of the lingering effects from that Game 2 loss where they got outpaced late, that's not something that you can necessarily afford. You're still in a spot where you're putting all the focus and attention on getting those two in the best positions possible to win. Both of them are going to be ball-dominant players. They're going to need the ball in their hands to be successful. Fair enough. That made the job all the more easy for Minnesota in this game, because virtually no one else came along for the ride. Everyone else was rendered relatively inefficient in this game. You look at this, and it goes all the way from Hardaway Jr. to even Spencer Jones in this game. Nobody outside of Cameron Johnson on a fair amount of attempts really shot a good percentage in this game. And those are the pluses of it. When you have Jokic and Murray imposing their will against these defenses and forcing the action on their end to be the offensive masterminds that we know they are, especially Jokic, it does open up the floor for everyone else. And even Cameron Johnson had said it himself multiple times the second he got traded to Denver, in fact. Hey, I'm going to get all the open shots because Jokic is going to bring that kind of pressure on him. As an offensive ball handler, he's going to know where to find me. That's fair. The offense is so reliant on those players hitting those shots. And once again, when you're forcing the ball out of those two's hands and those shots are not falling, there is an imminent disaster awaiting them every time. They'd have to clean that up in Game 5, which could go in their favor because of those injuries alone. I wouldn't expect them to just completely lie down and take a 4-1 gentleman's sweep as a first-round exit. In this case, I just wouldn't envision that for Denver. Still, they have an uphill battle to climb, as 3-1 deficits are still very hard to come back from. Got their work cut out for them, but they certainly, more than anybody else, can pull it off, and they have in the past. You still have, in all senses, the best player on the court, so anything is possible with that man being on your team. But to move into the Sunday action now, and to start out with the Raptors and Cavs. And I'm going to say this right now because this is going to be the highlight of the video. Even if you don't necessarily expect it, I don't give a shit, okay? If you are a fan who favors offense, if you don't give a shit about the defensive side of the basketball, this first half of this game between the Cavs and the Raptors and the game as a whole was not for you at all. And you can cry harder about it later. You can complain about the level or lack thereof of efficient shooting that was taking place in this game. But from my perspective, watching this as a neutral fan, I saw nothing but absolute clamps on fucking display from both teams all game long. Everything was earned. No single make in this game was a given. Believe you me. And although there were some cases where it's like, okay, yeah, Brandon Ingram, you can make a fucking layup inside of easy range. You can make those little turnaround shots you do in your isolation possessions. You absolutely can. I don't know how you're missing that, and he'd been struggling to hit his shots all series. So for them to start out that way was a little bit like, oh, come on, you gotta give me something at some point. Man, the defenders for both teams, especially Toronto, made life a living fucking nightmare. The on-ball pressure was elite in this damn game. And once more, akin to Game 3, you got that energy right off the rip from the Toronto Raptors here. Make anyone else outside of Donovan Mitchell and James Harden beat us. We're going to pressure the living hell out of them. We're going to blitz them. We're going to double team them. We're going to get all inside of their fucking bodies as they try to move past us with whatever type of bullshit they're doing, whether it be trying to get to the free throw line or whether it be Donovan Mitchell with that windmill gather step of his. Fuck all of that shit. We're right there every single time, and there's nothing you can do about it. Every single bucket here was like fighting through tooth and nail just to get. Can put this an even better way. Laying on a fucking bed of nails, trying to tough it out and get these buckets through these defenders. Of course, Scotty Barnes is going to be the leader of that. But that shit was contagious throughout this entire Raptors team, especially as this game went on. Now, there were a lot of turnovers as well on both sides that were just very questionable, to say the least. But a lot came from, again, the same kind of pressure just crippling their ability to do much of anything. This was a very slow-paced game. But as I'm going to repeat covering this, that's how the Raptors won it. If you don't like it, you don't have to watch them play. That's how they want to play their brand of basketball, damn it. That's what they want to do. They're one of the strongest defensive teams in the league coming into this, and that is the point they want to emphasize in this series. They've been struggling to do it for the first few games, and man, they were on a fucking roll in this one. It did not stop. They did not waste a single motion. Even Jacoby Walter, who would go scoreless in this game, scoreless, was out here hustling his ass off on every single possession. You had Sandro Mamakhalashvili fighting for offensive rebound after offensive rebound along with Jakob Poeltl in this game. That was so marginally close because of that pressure from the Raptors, that those rebounds, as they started to pile up, that kind of defense fucking mattered, which with each and every single shot that both went in and did not go in. Each and every single one. The defensive energy was contagious on both ends, especially when I'm looking at some of the younger guys or less experienced guys on this Raptors team like Jamal Shead and Colin Murray-Boyles. Both of them, of course, coming out of college. Houston for Shead being a 4-year starter there. Colin Murray-Boyles having a bit lesser experience, being only 20 right now, coming out of South Carolina. They were rugged the entire game. Did not really give up a whole lot of offense to this team. And when you get to the end of this quarter, the hustle still came through, but the Raptors were trailing. So you know what? They just turn up the energy. They keep it ramping up the entire time. To Cleveland's credit, and I want to be fair talking about them, they did have a solid start to the second quarter to at least retain the lead, which is another quality that does matter in a game that comes down to the very margins like this. As they had Dennis Schroeder go off for that, and James Harden as well was able to, for one of the few times in this game, break out of his slump. What did hurt Toronto as well is that they could not make three-pointers. In fact, they missed their first 13 or 14 in this game. So having Sam Merrill make this three-pointer in return and increase this to a 28-21 lead at the top of the second quarter meant everything. Every single thing to this team. Now, with that being said, they could not hang on to it forever. Even with Dean Wade managing to hit a turnaround jump shot for some reason. I mean, goodness gracious. I cannot say enough about Colin Murray-Boyles and his energy in this game. This is one of the smaller players in terms of wings, big men on the fucking court at 6'7". And he was still able to utilize the athleticism he possesses as a player to his advantage, to put those defenders in uncomfortable spots and even draw contact on a few occasions. He had 7 points in the second quarter by himself, and that wouldn't even be the end of it, considering what this team was still able to do defensively. These Raptors players did a tremendous job of, one, again, getting under the skin of this Cavs team with their play on the court. That would prove to be the most important thing. Because at that point, even shots that seem routine are going to feel a bit weaker coming off the arms when you're getting battered and bruised in the paint like that. And that's how the Raptors want that shit. Okay? But another key point here, even with Brandon Ingram's struggles, he closed out this second quarter very well. And the team as a whole did a good job, especially in the second and third quarters, of closing them out with a bit of offensive firepower. They had a 12-3 run in this as Brandon Ingram himself would go off for 10 points, and he just started lighting it up from range, including faking out Max Strus and leaning in a little bit for a three-pointer that essentially beat the buzzer to give the Raptors a 38-36 lead at halftime. Yeah, you heard me right, 38-36 lead. We're taking it all the way back to the dead ball era with this. 38-36. Nothing flashy. No crazy offense performance from either team. Not necessarily efficient, just pure, rock-solid fucking defense. That's what the playoffs can be all about. You say it all the time. The court's going to shrink. Those foul calls that you think you're going to get in the regular season, they don't happen. They allow it to play on a little bit in the regular season. And that's shown through this entire fucking game. Just think about this, because this is mind-boggling when you think about it. 26% of the Raptors' points in that first half came as a result of this 12-3 run to close the quarter. Think about that. Yes, the Raptors themselves have been struggling to shoot because of Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley as well on the Cavs end, especially stepping up their interior defense in this first half. So they kept the game relatively even. But if they could continue to close out quarters like that, yeah, they were going to put themselves in pretty good position to win this. The Cavs, sensing that urgency, they had a bit of a shift here. Broadcast said they wanted to get Evan Mobley the ball a bit earlier and try to ease the game up for both Donovan Mitchell and James Harden, and also try to get Evan Mobley more involved, which ended up working just a little bit. He had some back-to-back makes to start off, and the team as a whole went on a 9-3 personal run to force an early timeout for Toronto in this game. Once that got resolved, though, the Raptors were just pretty much, like the mascot name would suggest, just digging their fucking claws into the core of this offense and putting them through the fucking ringer over and over again in this game. There are just too many different ways to say they clamped the shit out of them. There are way too many ways to say it. Goodness. So in this, with that being said, they themselves were still having a bit of struggle to generate true field goals. For every single possession they would force a stop on Cleveland, they'd also have their own questionable possession on the other end of the court. And even with the offensive rebounds in mind, they don't always matter if you can't make your shots that ensue. It got to a point late in this third quarter where the only real source of offense for Toronto was free throws. By that point, the Cavs had built themselves a slight 8-point lead. And then you have the Raptors slowly remain in this game through the sheer ability to force contact in close space. Thankfully for them, it ended up working out, and they were able to still, by the end of this, with Colin Murray-Boyles and Sandro Mamukelashvili keeping up their intensity on the glass, he did get a very good and just awkward layup around the rim. Like literally, he puts it right back up out in transition, and it just swirls around for seconds on end. So that is just an insane way to look at it, and it eventually allowed them to go on a 12-2 run before closing out this quarter. Keep in mind as well, the Cavs did not do themselves any favors. In fact, they had a 2 of 15 stretch from the entire field, point blank period. Every shot matters. You just cannot go on stretches like that and typically win. Although the way in which this game was played, the door was still wide open for either one of these teams to make a lasting imprint on this game. And it ended up being, even through the late surge that Donovan Mitchell and James Harden attempted to have, Toronto. They had themselves a 15-4 run as Donovan Mitchell, who had been struggling all game to shoot, really made 1 3-pointer. Saw that go in, and the whole team from there attempted to do as best as they could to run away with this game because James Harden was still feeling it, and they were able to start being the aggressors on offense for the only time in this game. Donovan Mitchell was still on a bit of a tear here as he would eventually go for 7 consecutive points of his own in the fourth quarter, showing that he can, even through his worst day, consistently rise up and make the necessary plays needed to win in the playoffs in the fourth quarter. That shit tightened up real fast. Because Toronto themselves, once they saw this happen, they were down by 8, 84-76 at the time. As ugly as it got, they were still going to give themselves a hell of a fight and put all the pressure on Cleveland here, which is what ended up going down. I mean, just this possession alone tells me everything I need to know because they already started to regain some of their momentum after RJ Barrett got an early layup in this sequence. You get Jamal Shead skying in for a defensive rebound, and then you have RJ Barrett inexplicably missing a layup, getting his own back, missing it again, having Colin Murray-Boyles come out of absolutely nowhere and snag the rebound, and then off of a breakdown, Brandon Ingram hits a clutch time 3-point shot to put this game within 2. Sam Merrill had the ultimate response on the other end. It is those kinds of sequences right there that matter in a game like this. And they were still, as this game was winding down in the final 2 minutes, able to draw awkward contact. Although I don't understand why the fuck James Harden decided to foul Brandon Ingram from 3-point range here, considering that they were already in the bonus. And still, a shooting foul out there would give you 3 free throws. He made a couple of them, so now we have a 3-point game here. As good as Donovan Mitchell was up to this point, man, the amount of missed shots here just did not help. And in a game where you'd want to have either Donovan Mitchell or James Harden close out the game for you, because of the effort that the Raptors had in this entire sequence, neither of them could do it. Neither of them. They had multiple chances at it and could not make a single shot, allowing the Raptors to get the ball back and allowing RJ Barrett to get a pretty smooth layup to bring this game within 1 now. It was looking scary as well as the Raptors were able to get the ball back with Jamal Shead to show you just how much effort took place in this game. It's a fucking 87-86 ball game. Through 47 minutes, these teams have been put through fucking hell in this game. They have been beaten up. And the exertion, the toll on their bodies is at an all-time high by the end of this game. And still, you have Jamal Shead, the smallest player on the fucking court, slithering in there after they already forced Harden into a near 8-second violation in the backcourt. Okay, he seals it by sliding in and ripping the ball from James Harden's grasp to secure the fucking 8-second violation. And he's turned up as hell. He's loving it, awaiting the call, and they give it to him. And you could not get louder if you were those guys in Scotiabank Arena in Toronto. You could not get much louder than that. The energy that you're possessing as a player to pull that off in that moment, 47 minutes into the fucking game. That's the identity that the Raptors want to carry themselves with. So who gives a fuck if the offense isn't all there? Who gives a fuck if it's ugly? They want it to be ugly. They'd had enough. They were sick and tired of getting slashed around and slaughtered on defense. So they returned the fucking favor with their backs against the fucking wall. And they got the job done. After some more free throws from Scotty Barnes and exceptional defense from Colin Murray Boyles by simply, at the last second before Donovan Mitchell eventually shoots this three-pointer late, after they'd already gone through a slew of misses, removes his hands, puts his hands behind his back, and forces a pretty awkward angle at the shot. And it goes to the right of the rim. Has to scatter for it. It goes out of bounds off Donovan Mitchell, and that sealed up the game right there. Still got crazy because Sam Merrill wanted to try some bullshit. The game was over, though. The Raptors, after being down 0-2 heading into Toronto, going back home, even the series up in the way that is ideal for them. Just put this into perspective for a second as you have this 93-89 score for them. Okay? Because again, like I said, this is the highlight of the entire fucking video. If you're a Raptors fan entering tonight, which will be Game 5, you can't be much prouder of a team performance like that. I don't give a fuck what the numbers say. They matter. Because if you're playing with that kind of effort on the fucking court, you're going to always give yourself a chance to win. And again, backs against the fucking wall, they even up the series with a dominant, suffocating defensive performance. As a youthful team facing off against one of the older assembled teams in the Cavs right now with a veteran player like James Harden. They made him essentially a non-factor in this game. All of them. Like I said, Jacoby Walter didn't score a point in this game and still did what he did to that squad in 27 minutes. The numbers matter. The Raptors in this game shot the worst field goal percentage in a playoff win since the 1969 Celtics, I should say, at an even 32%. They shot 13.3% from the three-point line. And free throws were hard to come by for both teams. But in a game where it all comes down to the margins, they had 10 more points off of turnovers while forcing 6 more. They had 5 more offensive rebounds, each and every single one of them being important, and they had 12 more points inside the paint. Even with a game like this, this was the Raptors' one to win. This is what they want to come out and do to a team in this series. This is the exact kind of game that they had been waiting on, and they got it. Matter of fact, scratch that. They went out there and they took that shit from this Cavs team. Left it all out there on the court. That is what it is all about in playoff time. And as a general fan, I cannot be prouder of a performance in Game 4 from any other team. I can't be. I don't give a shit what the numbers say. That was an exceptionally well-played game by the Raptors in this one. And I will die on that hill. Because that's what they want to fucking do. That is their identity. And they stuck with their fucking guns the entire game. And they did what they needed to do. Heading back into Cleveland tonight to potentially, after almost facing an 0-3 deficit, potentially take the series lead if they can replicate that again. And oh, trust me, they're going to look to do it. Scotty Barnes in this game had 23 points, 9 rebounds, and 6 assists, along with 3 blocks on 6 of 15 shooting. So what? Brandon Ingram had 23 points and 6 rebounds on 6 of 23 shooting with 3 threes. So what? Because when he needed to hit the shots, especially in that second quarter, to close it out exceptionally well, he did. RJ Barrett had 18 points and 8 rebounds on 8 of 22 shooting, cooling down a little bit from his Game 3 performance. So what? Styles make fights. That's what they say. Styles make fights. And even in a series where the road team has not won yet, you have yourselves now a fucking battle unfolding before your very eyes. Their defense at their best against a Cavs offense, supposedly at their best, and they crushed them. Full strength on strength. So this Game 5 is going to be very interesting in that regard. You could also argue that this was an aberration for the Cavs, especially with the entire stretch of road action that they'd been dealing with. It has not been very nice to them at all. James Harden and Donovan Mitchell struggled this entire time. Donovan Mitchell in this game had 20 points, 4 turnovers, and 6 rebounds on 6 of 24 shooting with 4 threes. It is a very abnormal Donovan Mitchell game, considering his reputation in the playoffs, especially as an efficient one-man wrecking crew in most cases. This isn't your average defense. How about that? James Harden as well also had 19 points, 8 assists, and 7 turnovers. I think he also had 8 turnovers in the game before. So not a very efficient time for him right now either. And he shot 6 of 14 from the field with a pair of three-pointers. Sam Merrill also tried to give him a spark off the bench in 19 minutes, providing 14 points and literally nothing else. No, seriously. 14 points and just 2 fouls. But they mattered, especially nearly at the end. If that actually would have been called a three-pointer, that could have made things very interesting for Cleveland. So even with that in mind, they still had a tremendous chance to win. It's not like they were completely just left to die out there. No, they still had a fighting chance themselves. The shots could not drop. And they're going to need to. If Cleveland doesn't want to get reverse swept, potentially, they need to very soon. Them having a home game could allow them at the very least to resuscitate a little bit of that. Their big men also had a very weird game. Like I said, they tried to get Evan Mobley going in the second half, and Jarrett Allen was also steady on defense. The 24 rebounds combined and the 3 blocks don't do enough justice as to just how great they were deterring shots and altering shots inside the restricted area. I'll be fair about that. Even though I'm singing Toronto's praises. Like, those are still good things to take away for Cleveland. But their big men also shot a combined 5 of 16 from the field. Majority of those shots coming inside the painted area. And if your guards are trusting you at that point to make plays in close range, you've got to be far more efficient down low than that. Because they needed to be in a game like this. Yeah, they shot 25% from 3, hit 6 more. This game was not going to be determined by that. It just wasn't going to be. So you had to get that resolved, like, right now. I'm sure that on the plane ride home, Atkinson was talking about it ad nauseum. Because you cannot, if you're them, heading back, you can't pull off a performance like that in front of home court. You just cannot get away with that. But to move on now into the next game, the Spurs and the Blazers on Sunday. Now, at this point, of course, they overcame a large lead with the help of Harper and Castle, just putting up a historical performance in tandem to win Game 3, after it looked as though, without Wembanyama, they were going to drop another one potentially. For them, they would get Wembanyama back. Now, I missed the very beginning of the game because, of course, they were still showing the defensive masterpiece that the Raptors were pulling off. The Spurs got off to a pretty hot start from what I saw when they came back in, like right into it. You have De'Aaron Fox just getting open in the corner, and he cashes in a 3 as they go on an 11-2 run at this point. So it's safe to say that they hadn't lost much of a step at that point. And that was in the middle of the Blazers also just clearly going through a struggle. They knew the entire time, the entire series was going to be a struggle for them to establish their will inside the painted area, especially with Wembanyama now being back. Of course you weren't going to take a high volume of shots there. So they were settling for some mid-range shots that they deemed a little more inefficient. They were settling for three-pointers that they were still struggling to make. And as a result, they had been, up to that point, 1 of 14 from the field after they started off perfect. And going through a slump like that, at any point in any game, is going to put you behind the 8 ball in some way, right? You just can't afford to have those kinds of mistakes against a Spurs team that goes deep and can literally field multiple starting fives if they need to. Luckily for Portland, they would recover in time as you had Jeremy Grant start to get a little bit aggressive here, going for a slew of 4 quick points. And you would also have Shaedon Sharpe make one of these 3-pointers down the stretch to actually give Portland a 25-21 lead. Now, of course, when you have a walking 4 verts completion in Victor Wembanyama, they can just lob it up, toss it to him, literally throw it to the moon, as he said. He's going to come down with it, catch it, and dunk it in. You can't do much about what happened next. But they still had a 25-23 lead at the end of the first quarter. So you're still good. They really started to create some distance in this second quarter, though. I will say that. And, I mean, it helped because they started to actually convert on those shots outside. As much as I'd been going at Stephon Castle specifically for his need to make shots if they're going to sag off him, it's the same energy for the Trailblazers as an entire team. And only in Game 2 did they find that success in the fourth quarter. Well, they started to summon a little bit of that, although it did take some luck. Like, you have Drew Holiday just chuck up a prayer at the buzzer, and he somehow reins in that three-pointer. So, I mean, sometimes you have to be a bit more lucky than good, I guess, right? Still, you're not complaining about it if you're Portland. And that momentum carried over from that shot, extended into something truly special for them. They started to completely outrace this Spurs team, going on a 18-4 run through the second quarter. And it just kept growing and growing as the ability to make shots on the outside now put some pressure on the Spurs, because they had to actually think about what they were going to do and the moves that they were going to make on defense to account for this team. They couldn't just sit back and have Wembanyama or their wings roam freely. No, they had to give up and sacrifice that just to stay guarded to their men. And even at that point, there were moments where they were able to beat them. They started to be able to get to the paint a little more, especially Danny Avdija in this case. That's traditionally what he wants to do. And that lane opened up for him on several occasions. Ultimately, the Blazers, by the end of this quarter, although guys like Julian Champagnie would still try to contribute to the scoring here, the Blazers held a 17-point lead. It did not help, and it did not bode well that De'Aaron Fox was still able to make a buzzer-beating floater to end off the first half entirely. Still, though, you're feeling pretty good about yourselves, holding a 17-point lead, entering the stretch of time. So it's not like you're complaining about that at all. I wouldn't think so. So, problem. It's not about how you start a game. It's about how you finish. Devin Vassell and the Spurs team came out of that halftime period. I don't know what Mitch Johnson said to them. I don't know what the sentiment was in the locker room. They came out like men possessed in that third quarter, and they went on a 23-4 run to open it. Yeah, a 17-point lead at halftime, completely erased, eradicated in a matter of minutes. Because everything, and I mean everything, was clicking for this Spurs team. Whether it be Wembanyama again, continuing to go up for lobs, Vassell and Champagnie and even De'Aaron Fox hitting three-point shots. The threat can come from anywhere with these players, with this kind of talent on your team. They made it a point to express that fully in this one. You even had Luke Cornett continue to pull off alley-oop dunks because they left the lane open for him to receive these kinds of passes. And you still had Dylan Harper and Stephon Castle when they were in throughout this stretch, killing the game. They still had a little bit of work to do, but through it all, they still, by the end of this third quarter, tied the game. They had a little bit of life once Danny Avdija hit another three-pointer. But again, Wembanyama and those lob passes are just some of the easiest plays you can have in basketball right now. You just put it in an area where he can catch it, which is virtually anywhere over the rim. And he'll grab it. And he'll bring it down. It's not hard. It's not hard. By that point, the Blazers just lost everything. Even with Shaedon Sharpe putting up 9 points in this third quarter, they'd allowed this Spurs team, who they thought just a second ago were completely dead and out of it to work all the way back into this game and make this a true battle. And everything was possible knowing that this man was back now. They literally started off the fourth quarter with those lob sets again just to bring Castle off screens and get Wembanyama free down the lane. That play was just so unstoppable for them in this game specifically. And it's just like, it's a momentum killer. It's demoralizing for Portland at that point. You believe that you're doing everything else right on defense up to this point, and then you're just getting beaten by this consistently. Very few can stop it. And that would be an issue for the Trailblazers throughout this entire time. Also, hey, De'Aaron Fox, man, as good as Stephon Castle had been, they did not have him for this stretch of the fourth quarter. They substitute him out with a 9-minute mark. De'Aaron Fox had to just come out there and remind you why the hell the Spurs traded for him at the trade deadline in 2025. It's because of moments like this. I mean, he comes right in, wastes no fucking time, and goes off, just speeding towards the rim for back-to-back layup fadeaway shots. Then proceeds to, out of a timeout, go instantly for a three. Space out to Keldon Johnson, dishing him an assist for an open three-pointer. In no time, gets 7 points, just in an instant. The lead's up to 13 now, and now they're really starting to settle into things. The Spurs have got this thing completely, and while the Blazers put forth their best effort, you get Fox to set everyone else up. That's what he can do as a true point guard. Everyone else just proceeded to bring the hammer down at this point. They would go on a 16-5 run, not only getting all of these players involved, but really making an effort to force these turnovers and get out in transition for easy baskets, like this Keldon Johnson dunk to extend the lead up to 20. By that point, even though this could be considered clutch time if this game was closer, the Spurs never left it in doubt in this fourth quarter, where it mattered the most. So again, as they win this game, eventually, despite a double technical foul being called on Stephon Castle after he put the ball right in Danny Avdia's hands and they went for a little scrum for a second, 114-93, after trailing by as much as 19 points, how many different ways do they have to show you that they can beat these fucking teams? Who gives a shit about how young they are when they are out here showing you on a night-to-night basis that they have been able to overcome some of the more unlikely odds you will see in playoff settings, even if this is against the Trailblazers, and they did it anyway in dominant fashion. They are the only team in playoff history to trail by at least 15 points at halftime and win by at least 15 by the end of the game. What more do you need to see from this Spurs team? Yes, they could probably be a little more battle-tested in a playoff setting. It gets to a fucking point where that conversation is just getting old immediately. They're already putting that shit to bed with performances like that. It's a gut punch if you're the Trailblazers. It's a gut punch. You go out to that large of a lead against a damn good team. You have to do a much better job of protecting it. And they got sloppy. They got sloppy in that entire second half. They were outscored 73-35. For reference, 73-35. Those kinds of swings in momentum cannot happen in a playoff setting. You have to maintain some level of balance here. You have to keep some kind of control on your end in a game. Because if you don't, it is shit like that that will proceed to happen. And they promptly paid the price for it. Deni Avdija in this game had 26 points, along with 7 rebounds and 3 assists on 8 of 14 shooting with a pair of threes. It was not enough. Not at all. And that assist to turnover ratio says a lot as well. Because again, when they know that they can just funnel it down to Wembanyama and play free on the perimeter, it makes everyone's job so much easier. So it got to a point where it's like, okay, they're just intercepting these passes, or they have enough range to double team Deni Avdija and sneak up behind him and steal a ball and just go out on the other side of the court and handle their business. That's the freedom that you have here. Jrue Holiday had 20 points and 6 rebounds, along with 6 turnovers on 6 of 13 shooting and 3 threes. Jeremy Grant off the bench, I was saying, hey, he's got to provide a little more in this series, and he did do that. He had 17 points and 5 rebounds in 33 minutes on 6 of 12 shooting, so that's fair. Was not enough. They would love to have better performances from both Shaedon Sharpe and Donovan Clingan, though. Sharpe is still in that spot where he has the potential to be a very good player, especially with the athleticism. Like, that's well understood. The scoring efficiency for him sometimes is so shit that at times they don't even think he's a playable component on this roster. So I only got 13 minutes in this game. I love Shaedon Sharpe. You have to get a bit more in your arsenal than just that if he wants to truly survive for the long term. And then Donovan Clingan as well. There were just multiple plays here where it's like he's got free chances to make just simple touch shots at the rim, and he's getting blocked by Devin Vassell. He's struggling to make these really close, high percentage looks. No, Donovan Clingan is not a scorer, and he's going to play more because of his rim protection. He can only last 14 minutes in this game, and they had to continue to opt for a more athletic and smaller player in Robert Williams III to try to keep up out there. Because after a while, with Donovan Clingan going for just 2 of 10 shooting here, 5 points, and having Wembanyama get the better of him on these matchups, yeah, you can't keep him in forever there. So that's just highly unfortunate from his perspective. Like, this is a player who can most certainly make an impact here, and you just have that going down. It's tough, to say the least. But what a damn win by the Spurs to just continue to prove these critics and these old fucking people wrong about what a youth movement can do for a basketball team. They now set themselves up very well on the verge of getting a potential series win here, the first since 2017 for them. Very, very good work on their end. And the Blazers, hey, they're going to need a whole lot of fight in the next game to stave it off. All right, moving on to the Celtics and the 76ers on Sunday. Philadelphia, when they have typically trailed 2-1 in a series, entering this game, were 2-21 all time in their history. So they were quite literally staring down their own barrel here. If there was ever a person who could come in at this moment and make a total, fundamental change in how they could approach the rest of this series, they got their answer. You see, it was all a part of the process, I suppose. Joel Embiid was actually slated to come back for this game after getting appendicitis surgery and taking the last few weeks to recover from that. He returned in this game. So things went seemingly, if you look at the box score, okay. He had 8 points in the first quarter. He was getting to the free throw line. He forced Neemias Queta, in fact, into early foul trouble, to where his minutes, as a result, were just completely skewed for the rest of the game. And it felt like, at moments, he could really lead this team back. That could be seen as a positive for the 76ers. If only they weren't trailing by 16 points and held to just 18. On the one end, he, as well as the entire defense here, they just got incredibly sloppy. Because early on and throughout this game, Peyton Pritchard and the team as a whole lit their ass up from three. They lit them up. I mean, this man, Peyton Pritchard, was literally an iso ball on some of these, bullying these players and exposing the living shit out of them. He was driving to the rim past Paul George. And he, in the last 5 seconds of the quarter, because this is what he traditionally does, proceeded to make a buzzer-beating three-pointer. Even with Joel Embiid near the area, because that's what he does. So that was incredibly sloppy for the 76ers. They had no sense of ability to really change the flow of that game on their own end. They'd want to continue being a physical team in their own regard. They could not protect the ball to save their lives, and it allowed the Celtics to get out for some easy runs. Like, literally, a 25 to 27 or 22 to 5 run in this time. At that point of the game, it's just unacceptable. And they were up like 13-12 when you look at it that way. So it was close. They had the recipe for just a second, especially with Paul George hitting this shot. And then you're telling me in a matter of around 4 minutes and 41 seconds, a 22 to 5 run unfolds. That is sloppy play. And that hurt the Celtics team. That hurt the 76ers team, rather, moving forward. You just can't have slumps like that early and expect good teams to relent in their game plan. Especially a team in the Celtics that have won an NBA championship. I think they would know better than most people how to protect their leads. Pretty much for the rest of the game, you had the 76ers just trying to play catch-up here. And the lead did briefly extend in the second quarter, but you could tell that the 76ers were at least trying. They were trying to get themselves back into this game. Okay, they did have an 11-3 run. They did force a few turnovers of their own, including Quentin Grimes being able to just run out, take this all the way to the rim, and get an easy dunk out in transition with around 7 minutes and 30 seconds left in the second quarter to decrease the lead to 18. They tried to put as much of a dent in this as possible. And as Kelly Oubre Jr. got to the line, they actually decreased this lead to as low as 15. Considering where they were at, to potentially close out the first half being down by somewhere less than 15, maybe within 10 points, would be a massive win. You didn't have to go out and seize the entire rest of this period with your own 22 to 5 run, right? You just have to take the steps necessary to ultimately go for the overall push and edge at the end of the game. This was at least an ingredient for it. They just left all the others out. No, quite literally. And again, that pressure from a two-way team that is going to play by the three, they're going to live by it, they're going to die by it, and they damn sure have the defense. You're not going to question that in any of the players that they have on this squad. When you can have Luka Garza coming off the bench and just hit a three immediately to bring it back up to 19. When your number 11 player on the team is still highly valuable as a role player, like you're doing something right. And the Celtics most certainly are, considering what happened with Brad Stevens, which again, I have to get into all the awards and things like that in a different video. I want to be very time conscious about that. So all that aside, Jaylen Brown is able to make a beautiful fadeaway shot to close out this half as they're up by 18. The third quarter was just, how do I put this? Hey, for, Celtics fans who might still take the 2022 finals into account and how this player performed against them, even with Curry being the highlight man, it was a fucking pool party in the third quarter. Yes, it was. Like, there were just minutes in a row here. You're just having these teams go back and forth with each other, making three-pointer after three-pointer after three-pointer. No, seriously. Like, that's how this will read. Just three-point make after three-point make. You have Maxey and Tatum and Embiid and all those guys just sparking up from three over and over again. At a point, they got so hot that neither team could really stop each other from making them. The Celtics continued to chase their own history by doing exactly that with a volume that they were making these three-pointers. And the 76ers, while it felt like, again, having that kind of shooting tear could get them back into this game, you're just running in circles if you're going to have this other team respond with easy three-point makes themselves and not slow down at all. You're getting nowhere. You're making no traction, and the lead by this point has still increased to as large as 21 by the end of the quarter, which would maintain up to that point. So I'm like, do I need to take my notes? Do I need to take my notes for the rest of this game when this Celtics team is that hot from three-point range, knowing that that's what they want to do as a basketball team? Probably not. They made this lead incredibly worse, as not only did they ended up winning by 32 with a 128-96 score, to where even Max Shulga could come in off the bench and make a three-pointer for the final score of the game. They hit the most three-pointers in a single game in the playoffs in their franchise history with 24. You want to talk about pace and space with a 76ers team that couldn't even get over 30% shooting in this game, and had been the case traditionally for them, especially in the first couple. You allow them to go 24 of 53 from three-point range, and that made up a lot of their shot diet, and it resulted in 72 points from that range alone. How the hell are you supposed to last with a team like that? You're giving up that kind of effort on the other side of the basketball, and there's no way of you even being able to get them out of rhythm. How are you supposed to compete with that? Even with Nehemias Queta being out of this game, they beat their ass in three-point range. They beat their ass in terms of accruing rebounds. Have 51 compared to the 76ers 30 overall. After a while, they just stood no fucking chance. you can very much see the reason why they are down 31 in this series. Joel Embiid in this game had 26 points, 10 rebounds, and 6 assists in his return on 9 of 21 shooting. That box score will not tell you everything, though. Even when you look at Tyrese Maxey and VJ Edgecombe's combined games, they were not great. But as the broadcast team had put it, and which is why they struggled, it felt to me as well watching it, where at the very least, if you're going to have Joel Embiid come back, I know that your desire is to have him save this series for you. The much better thing for them was to just put him on the bench, have him come in on a minutes rotation. As the broadcast team said, you are taking away from the pace and the energy that both Maxey and Edgecombe want to play with Maxey's dynamic speed being one of the faster players in the game, point blank period, regardless of position, and with Edgecombe already being an athletic freak of nature at his position. They love to play with that kind of speed. And relying on Joel Embiid to just take all these possessions in the post where he's primarily going to operate. And don't get me wrong, this is a man who scored 70 points doing that exactly. He's a dominant offensive player. Very. And when he was at a much healthier point, he had that two-way force. So it's not like Embiid can't harness that when it matters. But relying on it completely took away from their game plan. Completely took away from how they want to operate on the court. And once more, with Joel Embiid coming out shooting a little rusty, it hurt him. If that's all that you're going to rely on without anybody else being able to really pitch in and put in their own work. So I can't really harp too much on Edgecombe having the performance that he did. Like, it's out there. The numbers are out there. I don't even feel the need to really bring it up. There's a reason for that. Edgecombe, again, as a rookie, being asked to command that kind of attention in the first place is a lot in a playoff series, as it is. Now you're taking that away from him a little bit with Embiid being back in this game. It's like, what exactly do you want him to do about that? That's a lose-lose situation. As for the Celtics, Peyton Pritchard. So, we're just going to say, recklessly for some reason, that, as many people put it, they don't have a consistent third option outside of Tatum or Brown on this Celtics team when all Peyton Pritchard does is come off the bench and give them nothing but fucking buckets. Each and every single time. This man had 32 points on 12 of 21 shooting and 6 3-pointers in this damn game as the outright third option for this team. Bullshit statements just flying all out of the woodworks here. The team chemistry is going to be ruined when Tatum comes back. They don't have a third option on this team. What the fuck are you talking about? So then replay the footage then. Go watch this game again and see Pritchard not only put up the second most points off the bench for Celtics since the 1970 season, but also tie himself for the most playoff games with 5 or more 3-pointers, along with names like Manu Ginobili and Pat Connaughton and Duncan Robinson. Go replay that footage and then say once again, they don't have a consistent third option on this team. This is bullshit. What are you talking about? Then, to make matters even better, you still have Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown controlling the pace of the game. Jason Tatum had 30 points, 11 assists, and 7 rebounds in this game. 5 turnovers, yes. Still shot at 8 of 16 from the field and had 5 3-pointers. And Jaylen Brown chipped in 20 points and 3 3-pointers just for the hell of it. 48.3% shooting from the field as a team, 45.3% shooting from deep. They were on it all game long, bro. But they don't have enough. They don't have enough. What more do you think they could possibly need? Then, what more? If you're truly trying to be greedy here. I mean, damn, they already had to do enough work through the offseason, through the trade deadline, just to get under the second fucking apron. And they've had Neemias Queta over-exceed expectations. On top of them getting Jason Tatum back in what was supposed to be a gap year and a lost cause of a season. What more do you want? Like, just stop talking. What more could you possibly need from them to show you that they are still championship contenders at this time? I don't understand. Like, these are just some nasty-ass narratives, man. You gotta pack that shit up at some point. My goodness. All right, moving on to the Rockets and the Lakers on Sunday. Well, everything was on the line here. With KD still being out due to injury, their backs were literally against the ropes. You can't get much closer. In fact, you have that happening while the boxer in this proverbial case is literally about to land the final knockout punch they need to win the bout. Okay? That's the situation the Rockets were in entering this game. And they needed the game of their lives in order to extend their season. Simply put. Now, through the early portions of this first quarter, the Lakers were still able to establish at least enough control to get out to an early lead. But it wasn't so easy. You see, the Rockets were able to force multiple turnovers early and often against this Lakers team, despite their ability to continuously move the ball around in an efficient manner. There was a Rocket awaiting the pass before it even got there. And it allowed the Rockets to undergo some pretty early transition opportunities. So they were within the fight early. And that's what you wanted. In fact, all the first quarters had been like this in regards of them keeping a bit of an offensive pace with this Lakers team. All those games, go back to 1 through 3, have been high scoring for both teams in the first quarter specifically. Well, they were intentional about limiting it a little bit. Now, they did have Jake LaRavia get to the free throw line, but after that, the Rockets were imposing a bit of their own physicality as Alperen Sengun would go for 8 points in this first quarter, just playing bully ball on his end. And consistently, again, operating in the post, putting up those push floaters and trying to create as many opportunities for post moves as possible. You also had Amen Thompson, again, continue to exploit the short-range dribble handoff, because that is the best way for him to get his hands on the ball without much resistance and get a high-quality shot in the same fell swoop. Ultimately, this helped the Rockets go on, by the end of the first quarter, what would be a 16-4 run. Not even necessarily having to be the elite shooters, but winning on the glass in the way that they traditionally would. Playing with the hustle that they love to do in being a much faster team in pace than the Lakers out in transition. Including work from Josh Okogie here after what was honestly just a very stupid string of turnovers from the Lakers. I mean, seriously, like, all you have to do is inbound the pass. He just throws it right to fucking Tari Eason, and then it results in Josh Okogie getting to the rim like that. Then they had a weird scenario where there was a violation because Marcus Smart tried to chalk a fucking ball all the way down the court, and his ass ended up being illegally established as a player. So that kind of shit right there are just, like, those are tough mental lapses that you can't have if you're the Lakers trying to close the series out. Let's just say that the Rockets were able to continue capitalizing on this, especially as LeBron James, the way they were double-teaming him, bringing multiple bodies at him and swarming him, it made everyone else have to elevate their game even more. The thing about the Lakers this entire series had been that as long as the ball is in LeBron James's hands, whether he's scoring with it or whether he's setting up other players to distribute the basketball or he's directly assisting them himself, good things are going to happen. When that doesn't, and when they force him into those contested battles where he has to play with a lot more energy as a ball handler, they forced his hand several times, especially as this game went forward. The Rockets still had themselves a large enough lead as they were able to hold the Lakers all to a slow start in the second quarter. And then, despite them having a small, very small but important 6-3 run in this game, you had the Rockets ultimately respond in the last 2 minutes very well. And again, the 5-minute segments of these second quarters have been another key in each and every single one of these games up to this point. Well, the Rockets ensured that this was not going to be a battle, that they would in fact win this stretch outright. And they did so by going on a 10-2 run en route to with Alperen Sengun getting a layup near the buzzer, went up by 9 at halftime and heading into the third quarter. Now, at this point, this was the best case scenario for the Rockets. You're not playing in a completely different pace where you have to try to outscore this Lakers team. No, they had the game in the palm of their hands. Similarly to that of the last one, overtime and throughout the fourth quarter, especially before that stretch of reckless play and execution on the court. But I digress. As long as they could maintain that for a full 48 minutes and not go through those inconsistent swings, they would be fine. And for the first time in this series, when they had to have it, when they were desperate for it, they finally did it. And in key ways. I saw the snapshot, and it stated that at the 8-minute and 53 mark of the third quarter, the Rockets had a 15-7 advantage in terms of turnovers forced. You take away all those possessions, and you have the lead that they're currently growing now. That is the perfect complement to how they operate as a team. And they had a 9-4 run in this time span as well, extending this lead all the way out to as much as 21 when Alperen Sengun was able to get out in transition against a defense that was even remotely in position and convert on an and-one opportunity. So that's pretty ideal. They also, throughout this quarter, grew their points off of turnovers to 22. I'm sure it extended way further than that, but once more, you have them getting after LeBron James especially, forcing the ball out of his hands, capitalizing on those mistakes, and really just keeping this Lakers team at bay. Not allowing this to be a close game where it is dictated by moments like what happened in Game 3. It never reached that point. Those players, once the opportunities came, although they didn't always have to, they hit the shots they needed to, and they ensured themselves a ton of extra possessions in the process, to where they ended up growing this lead all the way out to 26, as much as 26, before winning the third quarter outright, putting up 34 points in this period, and also taking a 90-65 lead. At that point, I'm like, I don't know if I can fully buy it because we know what the hell they just came off of last game. Maybe I'm just a hating ass motherfucker. They pulled it off. They pulled it off. Yeah. They ended up winning this game by the end of it with a 115-96 score here. Again, just completely dominating the Lakers, especially in that second half when it mattered the most. Forcing 23 turnovers and scoring 30 points off of them, being a large difference there. They also shot okay from three-point range. And that has been an interesting component to this series as well. They've taken more attempts from three, but obviously they traditionally can't fucking shoot. So it didn't mean a damn thing. However, they were able to make 40% of their three-pointers. And considering that they also limited the Lakers severely from doing this in the same way. Of course, the Lakers had far less attempts, were more efficient throughout the game, and the series, they only went 5 of 22 and shot 22.7%, despite shooting relatively well from the field overall. They shrunk the court a little bit, forced them to thug it out on the inside, and were more than content with it, despite them, again, traditionally making a higher percentage of their two-point shots throughout the season than open three-pointers. They were more than content with giving that up, knowing that they could outpace them everywhere else. And that is how they ended up winning by as much as 19 in this game. It was Tari Eason on the revenge tour here, if you will, going for 20 points on 7 of 10 shooting with 2 threes as a highlight here, along with 8 rebounds and 5 steals as well. Amen Thompson had 23 points and 7 assists on 10 of 16 shooting straight up. Alperen Sengun had 19 points and 6 rebounds on 6 of 12 shooting. And Reed Shepherd added 4 threes with 17 points of his own. Jabari Smith Jr. kind of like, not so hot for 15 shooting, but they frankly didn't need it all that much, especially with how they approached this game. So, you live with that, I guess. It's totally fine. Man, so they saved the season for now. I still don't know if I completely trust this Rockets team to really avoid a gentleman's sweep as they have the game tonight, I believe. So they'll look to see what happens there. As I've said, it's a good performance, and if they can force the Lakers' hand again, if they can continue to make them uncomfortable as they did, then, you give yourself life here. It's like in those first 3 games, though, you just piss them all away, doing half of that and not closing, because they have an inability to close in clutch time. So if this game gets close, they are kind of screwed. And considering some news that came through yesterday with Shams Charania stating, per a report that Austin Reeves was optimistic about playing tonight. And that as of the most recent update, it'll be a game time decision. Again, like I said, they already won the war. The Lakers did. Even with them losing this game. They go back home. They potentially get one of their better scorers on the team back, knowing that a scoring punch is going to come with that, whether he be on a minutes restriction or not. And that'll make things exceptionally tough on Houston. Now, I think they had Amen Thompson when everyone was healthy. I think they had Amen Thompson guarding Austin Reeves in the first place in the regular season. So I'm going to look to see, watching that game, especially if that is the case once again. They've had him on Kennard, being more of a movement shooter. They're going to need Amen Thompson, if that's the assignment, to absolutely lock him down. Or there's just no other way that they get past them. As for the Lakers, They lost this game primarily because of them freezing LeBron James out of the equation entirely. He had 10 points in this game and did not score only 2 points after the first quarter. Got his first field goal and those 2 points in the second half of the game. They go and run through him when he is the primary ball handler out there. As a point forward, point guard, point center, however you want to phrase it. They didn't need him to necessarily score all that much. But even just being able to distribute well is enough of a benefit to this team, which did not happen. He had 9 assists and 8 turnovers. Terrible ratio there. And by that point, it's like, DeAndre Ayton got himself ejected for the first time in his career because he decided to punch the living shit out of Auburn Schengen in the jaw. Like, he got him clean. I don't know how. And yes, Ime Udoka and Schengen said, oh, hey, that's a weak call. Dude, you can't do that shit. That's a frustration foul in every sense of the word. You can't have something like that happen. He didn't have 19 points and 10 rebounds in this game, though. Rui Hachimura also had 13 points and 3 rebounds on 6 of 10 shooting. For everyone else, it was virtually a struggle, though. I don't think they'll replicate that in this game, though. I think they're going to play with much more urgency. And in a way, they'll have to. The last thing you want in their position, especially after going up 3-0, is to have this series be more prolonged than it needs to be. I guess with the way that things have been set up, they could potentially be facing OKC. With the way that the series had gone up to this point, knowing how that team plays, the worst possible scenario you could have is potentially going to a Game 7. After that, exerting all that time and that energy just to get out of round 1 and then having to deal with that team in the next round. I'd have to believe that the Lakers are just thinking about that in the back of their mind as this goes on. But hey, if they can ultimately accomplish what they need to do in Game 5, they don't even have to worry about it for any longer. They're good. I think that it's a good performance by the Rockets. To be fair, I've done nothing but talk shit about their first 3. It is only right for me to give them the praise when it is due. I just don't know how much stock I take into it, personally. To move into the Monday action and start out with the Pistons and the Magic, the first few minutes of this game spelled doom for Detroit as far as this game is concerned. Not gonna lie to you. Now, they did find a way to recover somewhat from this. They yielded a 19-7 run. And they also gave up 7 turnovers and an offensive foul in the same time span. 7 turnovers in at least the first 5 or 6 minutes of the game against an Orlando team that's similar to Detroit will thrive off of those possessions. Specifically, it was the worst possible thing that they could have done. And these weren't even all just like standard, that's just better defense style turnovers. Some of them were just sloppy as shit. I'm like mishandled passes, balls rolling off of the fucking shoes of these players. It gets to a point where it's like, bro, you just have to protect the ball. Stop giving the ball away and handing it to them. That defense was also just getting stretched out. And even more revealing in this time span One of the buckets that will remain in my mind from this is just having Franz Wagner barrel his way to the basket and just have DUREN completely moved out of the way with a slight bump. This is Jalen DUREN we're talking about. He's the most improved player candidate and well-deserved. Yet this entire series for him has just been an absolute disaster class right now. Like, I can't even lie to you. They've been going right at him up to this point, and that remained true at the start of this game, and they were having their way with him. At some point, that would have to turn around, you'd think. Foreshadowing. Alright? So yeah. Even with them getting out to this lead, though, if there had been one thing that had been clear for Detroit, Cade's going to be the primary option. One of the only things of certainty that they'd had. He went off for 10 points in the first quarter, and the team as a whole, through that, along with some efforts from Tobias Harris, they were able to go on an 18-5 run themselves, and were briefly able to, as far as this game was concerned, they actually took the lead back with Dennis Jenkins assisting on some really good layup opportunities here to give them the 27-24 lead. Their defense was also just as sound as Isaiah Stewart started off just a great game in terms of individual defense. Considering that at this time they couldn't even have Jalen DUREN on the floor, with him being more of a defensive liability, he gave Isaiah Stewart all the room he needed to operate, and man, he was in a fucking zone. Like, there was a little while there, they could not fuck with this dude. I'm telling you. That's the kind of defense that he plays with. Despite all of what you see in regards to his enforcing and physical style of play, that's the gritty nature of him that you come to respect, especially being a teammate of his. So that helped the Pistons immensely get out to a short but important first quarter lead. Still, when it came to them in the second quarter, as Cunningham would maintain that level of production as a scorer, you started to question who else could rise to the occasion. Because in this game and in a few others, it had been Tobias Harris. Everybody else was up in the air at this point. You knew you were going to get the defensive nature from these guys, but nobody else was as consistent on the offensive end to spur that production. Not at all. Now, it was still tight. They were still in the running for this game, and they actually, with Tobias Harris and Cade Cunningham again continuing to contribute back and forth to each other, they did have a brief 10-point lead at the 7-14 mark after being up 40-30 off of a nice drop to the lane for Cade Cunningham. Still, the Magic, with the way De Silva played on both sides of the ball, they were able to respond in time, and they started to string together a few possessions in a row with some very favorable outcomes on their own end. Just really making it a point to be physical with this Pistons team, knowing that they'd want to shrink the floor just as much, with the Magic being a much stronger 2-point slashing style team. As that continued to work for Orlando, it also opened up a pathway for Desmond Bane to continue his stretch of hot shooting. Of course, he went 7 of 9 from deep in Game 3, and trust me, not Game 3, Game 2. And they needed it. They absolutely Game 3. They needed that, though, because he'd been struggling in the first couple of games. And so he would not waste any time putting in a nice three-pointer there to extend the lead. Not to mention, Franz Wagner was just getting after it. I mean, here you have a person known as a three-level scorer, one of the only three-level scorer style players on this team, and he is still just playing down and mastering his ability to drive into the lane, using his 6'11 frame to his advantage, and getting inside the restricted area for a couple of key makes to inch this lead even closer in their favor. By the time he made this 3-point shot with around 12 seconds left to go, which just, hey, they decided for some reason to leave him open. He eventually helped them get out to a 54-52 lead at halftime after what was a 12-point second quarter for him. Then we have the third quarter, where everything just went to complete and total shit for Detroit. And the Magic continued to capitalize off of these turnovers as well that they were forcing. By a specific point, as I noted here, they had a 23-8 advantage in points off turnovers. And that would be the mark by the fourth quarter. So this third quarter just gave them an absolute surge in that category, as they were just truly the aggressors on that side of the ball. The Pistons, for a while, could not muster any offense. And I mean any offense. Like, there is just a stretch of time in a row where after this Cade Cunningham shot, okay, you're searching around, you're asking yourself, who the hell else can make a shot? There were multiple possessions in a row where they are bringing down the offensive rebounds, kicking it out to Tobias Harris, and he still could not make a shot to save his life. And then outside of Tobias Harris, at least he was able to hit one eventually. Okay, so who else? No, I'm dead serious. Who else? As I'm going to reiterate later, this is a team-wide issue. And it does start in a way with Jalen Duren. The turnovers that he picked up in this third quarter and what would proceed to happen to him on both sides of the ball. This man was legitimately getting bullied out there by other players. Obviously, yes, he's one of the stronger players in the NBA. And clearly, Franz Wagner didn't care about it earlier, and most certainly, Wendell Carter Jr. for a number of different reasons that I honestly, from a personal standpoint, I ain't too concerned with, are invested in here. It's just like, at some point, and here I was saying as well, that hey, at some point, Duren is going to have to step up and elevate as that second option. And this could be a game to do it. No, he just proceeded to put another dud on the table. Again, it's not only him. I don't want to harp on that point. But you have a penchant for opposing centers being dominated by you in the regular season. And now in playoff time, he is not even really a great contributor to this Pistons team in the course of this entire series, regardless of what the box score may say. And even if you aren't too blown away by that doesn't even do it justice. You see what happens in this game. You have Carter Jr. playing with such intensity. On the other hand, he gets a fucking alley-oop after he blocks the living shit out of one of Duren's layups here. And they immediately call a timeout after that, despite this only being a 7-point ball game. So the importance is at an all-time high. Now, he was able to, at times, settle down, get some routine baskets, yet they were still work for him. And the Pistons as well, again, occasionally had scorers step up and make the shots they needed to take a brief amount of pressure off of Cade Cunningham, if only for a little while. They got this game close once more, as with this happening, they trailed by as little as 2 around this time. So, while it wasn't perfect, they were starting in a way to get themselves back into this one. They were starting to. If they could continue to back Detroit into a corner, they themselves, by pushing the pace of the game, could overtake it outright. So the last 5 minutes of this one, as with some of the other games like this, were going to be incredibly important. Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, like this, like, oh man. Okay, so the Magic, with all that being said, having a new lineup in, they were still able to, despite this game now getting within one after Isaiah Stewart was able to catch Goga Bitadze out of position, they actually went on a very short run themselves, getting a slew of 5 straight points to end off the quarter. Even if it didn't seem like much, it set the tone for what proceeded to happen in the fourth quarter all over. Because it would be at that moment where, yeah, the Heat legend, Jamal Cain, you have to understand, okay? At that point, there had been a little bit of a back and forth between the two teams. And most recently, before then, you actually had Paolo Banchero, or well, rather, you had Asar Thompson hit a pair of free throws. So this is a 2-point ball game. And you still have Jamal Cain getting the ball on the inbound, running the court, running the floor, with no one back on defense outside of Jalen Duren. And he sprints all the way to the hoop and off vert with a little bit of a running start. Dunks it on Jalen Duren's head. And he fucking stared him down as Jalen Duren fell on the floor. Just understand what that does for the psyche. This man has been struggling all series long. And he'd already been bullied at several points in this game. Then to make it even worse, Jamal Cain, of all people, yams it on his fucking head. And at that point, I'm like, no, hell no. That's when I'm like, I had enough. Something's got to give at some point. Because for that to just pile up throughout the entire game, culminating in that moment that has now been replayed several 100,000 million times, dude, that is like not a great look for Jalen Duren at all. Just punched it right over him, and he fucking fell down. That's what made it even worse. Still, you gotta have short-term memory. He was right down back down the court in no time. You had a game to win, and so all your energy had to be focused on that. Fair enough. Of course, the turnovers were still in question, and they just continued to pile up. Now, some of these down the stretch of the fourth quarter got a little random here. But through it all, despite the Pistons' best efforts, the Magic were still retaining a little bit of a lead here. They were up by as much as 5. Thankfully, though, despite having to work tremendously for it, through the help of Harris and also Thompson getting a layup here, wide open as it might have been, out of the transition fast break opportunity, they actually tied the game heading into the clutch time at 85 all. And this is where, in a series, it comes down to the margins. The game was won. Just hear this. Hear me out. The Magic themselves didn't even have to guarantee that they'd make each and every single shot when they went down the court. But they were timely. They were effective enough. So they had Jamal Cain get a dunk there. They had Wendell Carter Jr. get to the line. They had Desmond Bane, with 1 minute and 16 seconds left, make a pretty lucky but critical three-point shot as he celebrated a little bit, and the lead extended up to 6 rather. And then you also had Jalen Suggs on a night where he struggled to shoot draw contact at the rim, playing physical, playing to their style of basketball when it mattered the most. And that gave the Magic the ultimate edge here. You also consider what they were doing defensively. I noted that the Pistons themselves, on one of these particular possessions, they actually forced Desmond Bane and Jalen Suggs into multiple misses. Like, you just get a whole stretch here where you have Jalen Suggs with around 4 minutes and 3 seconds left get in for what was a dunk, and they just swarm everything. Like, the defense is consistently on it. They're trying to put up shot after shot, and you have bodies just rotating all over the place to prevent Orlando from scoring. That's the kind of defensive intensity that the Pistons want to work with. And they did that. They ended up forcing a turnover, but still were not able to make the necessary shots themselves. Or even later in the game, you have them double team Paolo Banchero. They get a snag, as Star Thompson does, on him and draws contact. He still can't make the free throws. He can't make either of them. Gets another chance, and still they can't come away with a bucket at all when they were in desperate need of one, as at the time, this was, again, still this is still a 6-point ball game. Every point mattered, and they could not come away with a single one. And that was by design for the Magic, who outplayed and outcoached J.B. Bickerstaff in this exact moment right here. All series long, with what Cade Cunningham has been contributing, the idea has been that, hey, you know what? We are going to rely on him and rely on him heavily to carry us to the promised land. Well, they had a plan for that. They essentially spaced everyone else out, and they had at least 4 people watching Cade Cunningham on each drive, to where he's running into a crowd of defenders in the paint on each and every single one. And that strategy for Orlando paid off big time, because Cade Cunningham at that point, not being able to trust his teammates, not being able to create his own efficient shot, was rendered ineffective. He had 2 points and shot 0 of 3 from the field in the fourth quarter. And that point was exacerbated in the final minutes of clutch time, where they were in desperate need of one. Still, it takes a team effort as a whole. So I don't, go after Jalen Duren like that to say that it is completely a him thing. Although, man, coming out of this game, you have got to step your shit up. I'm dead serious. But Jalen Duren isn't the only person contributing to what was, by the end of this game for Detroit, a 5 minute and 30-second plus stretch without a field goal. The only one that was made was a bullshit-ass layup by Isaiah Stewart that had no impact on the game whatsoever and came with just a single second left. When this game mattered, when it counted, when it was within 2 possessions, they went 5 minutes and 30 seconds plus without a field goal make. Detroit did. Now, that's a testament to, again, how the Magic played defense. But one, the inconsistency to find help outside of Cade Cunningham in just the turnovers, still piling up in the dumbest ways imaginable, really set this team back once again. They finished this game with over 20 turnovers. as the Magic won 94-88. 20 turnovers in the Magic in a 6-point ball game scored 23 points off of them. They were also able to shoot slightly, if ever so slightly, better from the 3-point line, making 3 more on 5 more attempts. They also shot a little better from the line and also won, shooting just around 33% from the field. Now, again, it was an ugly game. Neither team shot that great from the floor, but do you know just how anemic you have to be for you to still lose a game where you are actually out shooting them in terms of efficiency? You have to make it make sense. It is just insane at this point. The Magic put themselves in prime position entering tonight's game to become what I believe is the 8th or 9th instance, depending on the graphic, I'd have to look at it again, of an 8th seed upsetting a 1st seed in the playoffs. To look into their numbers, Paolo Banchero had 18 points, 8 rebounds, and 4 assists in this game on 4 of 18 shooting, but he got 10 free throws. Desmond Bane had 22 points and 5 rebounds on 7 of 18 shooting with 5 threes. And Wendell Carter Jr. had 12 points and 11 rebounds on 3 of 8 shooting. Franz Wagner also added 19 points and 5 rebounds on 7 of 15 shooting, while Jamal Cain was just, I really don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. Fucked around, came off the bench, and just went viral against a man in Jalen Duren, who is an all-star, who is likely going to be an All-NBA third-team player, just having another rough performance in this overall series. It is insane. As Jamal Mosley said, hey, the job isn't done. There's still a world in which Detroit could come back. They are going to have to win on the fucking margins. And they're going to have to win situational basketball. They can't do that, they don't stand a chance. Literally, we're putting all our eggs in the basket of, oh, hey, K can carry us. He had 25 points and 8 turnovers in this game and 6 assists with 9 rebounds on 7 of 23 shooting. Because they're watching him like a hawk each and every single time he brings a ball up the court. Because there is no threat elsewhere that can take some of the burden off. And they don't give that much of a care about Tobias Harris, even with his 20 points and 6 rebounds, for them to truly start committing to him in that way. No, it's got to be one of their other younger players. It has to be somebody at some point. Virtually no one else is showing up for the run here. It is Cade Cunningham and Tobias Harris, and then everything else is a question mark offensively right now. You can't lean on that the whole time to win a series like this. But damn, it would help you to put points on the board. It would most certainly help you when you need them in a hurry. And they just were not able to do that. It's insane how you go 5 minutes and 30 seconds without making a single field goal. That is embarrassing. Yes, they got some free throws. But, dude, that kind of shit right there is not going to cut it. And let the Pistons keep fucking around like that. They will lose. They will fuck around and lose tonight if they go through something else like that. That is just unacceptable to me. There's no way that can happen. Not at all. Just somebody has to. It's not an easy thing to do. It's much easier to say it. I get all that. But this is for their playoff lives. On your own home turf as a 1 seed. You just got to go out there and fight. I don't care what it takes. You have to. Because if they do anything less than that in a game like this, That would be doubly disappointing for Pistons fans out there. We've waited this damn long to see this team compete for something important, and could very well be on the verge of seeing them go out in the first round. Like that is wild. And then, moving on to the Thunder and the Suns yesterday, which did not end up being live, and I tracked the whole way. Yeah. Are you really surprised at what happened here? Despite the Suns' best efforts to keep it competitive, whether it was Colin Gillespie having 20 points on perfect 5-of-5 shooting from the three-point line in the first half, whether it be with the Suns putting together 67 points in the first half and keeping pace with a Thunder team that themselves had 75, they did not have enough in the tank to compete with this OKC squad. And they ended up losing this game in the series with a final score of 131 to 122. Like, I, again, did watch the highlights of it. I don't want to harp too much on the point because we figured after a while what the end result was going to be. I do admit, though, I like the fact that the Suns, for at least a good amount of time, fought and did not lie down, taking the result of this series for what it was. They were in the battle the entire way. This Thunder team is just a complete mismatch in every sense of the word. Every sense of the word. Especially with the way they ended up shooting in this game. You look at this 1-to-1. Of course, the free throws are going to be on their side, and they did end up with more. If you're this Sun squad, you're facing off against a Thunder team who consistently struggles to shoot the basketball from the three-point line. That is one of their only weaknesses. And they came out and they shot 50% from the three-point line while making 3 more in a 9-point ball game. It came down to that, and they still did not have the full answer they needed to provide the attack to take down this team for at least a game in this series. At least a game. Moving on to the Thunder here and their numbers since they advanced into highlighted. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had 31 points, 8 assists, and 2 rebounds in this game on 10 of 17 shooting, with 2 threes. In a series overall where he just went to absolute work against this team. I mean, damn. By far, the outright scorer of this team, 33.8 with 3.8 rebounds per and 8 assists per in this series. He's just a fucking unstoppable force. Chet Holmgren in this game had 24 points and 12 rebounds, along with 3 assists on 9 of 16 shooting. And AJ Mitchell in another start had 22 points and 6 assists on 7 of 16 shooting, rather. How about Isaiah Hartenstein as well? You know, touching up on that patented floater of his a little bit more and getting 18 points along with 12 rebounds in this game as well on 5 of 7 shooting. Alex Caruso, Cason Wallace, and Isaiah Joe also had multiple threes each. And once they settle into that kind of game plan, it's a wrap for virtually everybody facing them. So like I alluded to, one of the Lakers or the Rockets are going to have to deal with them. The fact that this team already swept them and have pulled off now back-to-back, if I'm not mistaken, sweeps in the first round. You want to try to get it over with as quickly as possible to keep them from getting an adequate amount of rest. And you, on the other hand, if you are the winner of that series, being energized just enough to not get blitzed in game number 1. Because that's what the Thunder like to do as a team as well. They also shot 53.7% from the field in this game, slightly better, if ever so, against Phoenix. As for the Suns, man, it's like, what can you do? You had Devin Booker score 24 points on 8 of 16 shooting and 6 assists in this game, along with 6 turnovers in just a single three-pointer. Now, the Suns as a whole, especially amongst their top players, they struggled to shoot the ball. You even looked at Jalen Green here. He shot 1 of 10 from the three-point line. Again, all those misses added up and ended up making a very small but crucial difference into what sealed up this series in the first place. Devin Booker, up to this point, admittedly, like I was saying, hey, you got to go out there, you got to fight, because this series has been a bit underwhelming for him. And while he would finish this postseason run with a decent stretch of games, like the box score here will say, okay, he averaged 24 or 21.3 points per game, along with 4 rebounds and 4.8 assists per game. That's okay. And still, I'd be like, okay, I'm expecting a little bit more, which he did start to provide, especially with one of the effort plays that I saw him make. He got a very contested floater, fade away, down the opposite end of the court, and then hustle back down for a steal. And it's those little plays like that that you don't always see. So I can commend Devin Booker for providing the effort at least. I just think that his shakiness in this postseason run was a big reason as to why they are now facing elimination. Dylan Brooks, of all people, would be considered to have the most prolific series here. Yeah, 23 points on 10 of 19 shooting with a pair of threes in this game, and would finish as the top scorer in terms of points per game in this series for the Suns. That's a serious red flag, especially considering where everything else came in at from everyone else. Jalen Green shot just 10 of 25 from the field. Doing okay, especially in two-point range, but just being severely limited elsewhere. As a playmaker, as a true shooter, they just dared him to consistently control the action. And he, for one reason or another, could not. So that is ultimately rough for the Suns. On one end, it's like, dude, you're running into a tough draw anyways. But not even a game? There are people out there who think that at the very least Steph Curry could go get him a game if the Warriors were in this situation facing off against this team. As I've said multiple times, you're throwing everything at the wall, trying your best to get the upper hand on this team, and you still don't have enough to stop them. It is insane. And this Thunder team deserves to advance. They deserve to. They earn that right. It's like, damn, you gotta be, after a while, kicking yourself just a little bit. Just a little bit. I would think so. And part of that does have to do with the fact that the turnover disparity by the end of the season has still grown immensely. Like, at this point, as of this recording, sure, it's probably somewhere near like a 70 or a difference in 70 in terms of turnovers carried over from the postseason matchup to the regular season matchup to the postseason in this particular series. I could ensure that. And doing that against any team, to just have all those possessions waste away and give in to an opponent who is as opportunistic as OKC is, what did they expect to happen? They glossed over all the little details, and those, aside from game one, are what made up the run of the series at every single turn. They had some large runs late in the fourth quarter to potentially get themselves a game. They had themselves some great contributions from unlikely sources in this one to keep them alive in some games. They could not string anything together when it counted, and that hurt them. ultimately, this will go down as just a very rough end to the season for the Suns in general. Especially with, again, a team that honestly had been struggling in the fourth quarter, somehow finding a way to muster up enough energy to come back and still coming up short. It's got to be tough. They, of course, had that slew of injuries as well that derailed some serious momentum they were building from the early to middle stretch of the season as well. That ended up placing them as a play-in caliber team. They honestly had a chance to be an outright playoff squad. All those things matter, for sure. Can't discredit that. They are trying to build something there. This is a team that can be considered just a little bit early, and they're still feeling the after effects of having to deal with the failed Beal, Durant, and Booker era right now. Beal is still actively on the payroll, eating up their cap. They have Devin Booker getting this 2-year deal worth around $70 million per. That is eating up their cap. And they had to get creative as well, considering the trade to bring the Rockets players and Dillon Brooks and Jalen Green over. So, the first season of Jordan Ott's career, finishing at 45 and 37, I guess 45 and 41 overall, if we put it that way, is not a half bad start for you to, get in there, make the playoffs in your first season. That is not a terrible thing at all. It's a very good sign. But how they respond to this particular series loss in this fashion is going to determine how they come into next season. And, of course, with Ott being a first-time head coach, there's a lot of natural growth that goes into things as well. Like, I'd be interested to see how his system works. Because having Brooks be a primary ball handler in his offense was something that took everybody by surprise. Can he implement something else that does give a bit more attention to one of their core guys? Or do they just continue to play loose without that kind of structure and operate with a three-headed monster of an offensive attack? It'll be interesting to see how he evolves that moving forward. Like, this team as a whole has got a lot to learn about each other, quite frankly, with the injuries in mind. They still did not have Mark Williams playing this entire series. And it could have changed things around just a little bit with how he is as a big man. So they can't kick themselves over this too much. It was going to be a tough draw for anyone, no matter who came out of the play-in. It was going to be a tough draw. They earned their right to get in the dance, and they accomplished that. That's worth something. In regards to contending for a title, in a time where, I was saying that this was going to be a legacy run for Devin Booker, not even close. And it is going to take either until they have less money on the books, or until these players, again, which is what they're banking on, start to rise as overall prospects in their positions. Until one of those two things happens, they could still be stuck for a very long time. Keep in mind, this Suns team does not really have a lot of draft capital in their arsenal here. Take a look at since the draft is coming up, NBA draft picks. Yeah, they don't own a first round pick. They have multiple second round picks, and they lost all control of any of their core picks up until, at the very least, 2031, as a result of all the trades that they conducted. This roster is going to have to go through that growing process as a whole. That is the only way they're going to be able to rise from any of this. building through the draft and relying on all those second round picks is just incredibly unlikely. So you've got to improve as a roster from within. You're not going to be able to consistently rely on the draft. It's just impossible for them to do that. Like, seriously. So, I mean, hey, man. Yeah, I know. Jeez. Man, though. Just gotta go fishing at that point. Gotta go fishing. But that will do it for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.